Well, I don't see the point in waiting any longer, so let's bring her out. The star attraction, the one you came to see. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Miss Judy Gold.
Hey everyone! It's a new episode of Kill Me Now. Yeah! Okay, I had my Ritalin, so I'm a little hyper right now. I just want to say I'm recording live in Provincetown in my kitchen, and I have been dying to have this person on the podcast. I can't even tell you. I must have asked you like a million times.
I think so.
Yeah. It is. I am a psycho fan. He is so talented. He unbelievably talented. Sit down. We're going to be doing a show together in Boston in October. And it's like a dream come true. I mean, from the first time I saw him, I was like, oh my God, this guy is so fucking talented. But I didn't see him as a guy. Does that give you a hint, ladies and gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen, this week's guest on Kill Me Now, the incredible Jeff Roberson, also known as Varla Jean Merman.
Yay, thank you, Judy.
Wait, it's Jeff Roberson Loe now.
Yes, J-Lo.
Oh, it's J-Lo because
L-O-E.
Jeff got married. Jeff got married. How is married life, Jeff?
I really like it. I mean, I could have gone either way. You know what I mean? So it's always so nice when you don't feel trapped.
Right.
Because I was really worried.
All of my friends who were like, I fucking hate it here. Yeah. I swear to God, the minute I have enough money, I'm out of this relationship.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's been good.
And how long? Wait, you've been
a
married?
year next week.
Oh, are you doing something special for the...
Oh, are we going to Newport, Rhode Island?
That is so white.
I know.
Whose idea was that?
That was his. He's very white.
There's no gays there, are there?
I don't even know. I've never been.
The first synagogue in the United States, Newport, Rhode Island.
Oh, really?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay. So is it Newport or Providence?
Newport.
No, it's Newport. Yeah. Okay. So now Varla's never heard the podcast. He's not as big a fan as I am of me as I am of his. But he did. I
don't even know what a podcast is.
It's like we couldn't get a radio show. We talk a lot about growing up because, I like to know what makes the person tick. And, I've done a lot of research on you, as I do with all my guests, but it's very difficult to find out stuff from your... I think because you're a character.
Oh, yeah. No one knows anything.
Right. And it's like, you're such an interesting person and very handsome, by the way. And all right, I just want to say that Henry and Ben, when they met, because we used to work at the post office cabaret together.
Many years ago.
And you used to get dressed during my show behind the curtain.
Right. I listened to your show every single night.
I'm sorry.
I know your material.
I'm sorry about that. And
Judith's roommate had a baby.
Judith's roommate had a baby, and Judith adopted it. Judith's roommate was walking down the street. There was a hypodermic needle flying around. It happened to have sperm in it. It landed in her vagina. And, okay, so that was my mother. But Henry used to watch you put on your boobs and stuff. Which, I love that my kids are not any phobic of any LGBTQIA plus. But you have the luxury of being anonymous.
Oh, yeah. No one knows who I am. But, because used to be all of us drags, we wouldn't want people to know. But now the culture has changed where everybody wants to know everybody. Everybody needs to know what you look like out of drag. I mean, because of RuPaul's Drag Race, people know exactly what they look like out of drag and in drag. But no one ever recognizes me because I've never been on TV really out of drag, except on Project Runway for a few minutes. So somebody, they can figure that out. But that was a long time ago. Right.
But have you ever been out of drag and heard someone talking about your show?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I've actually slept with people who said they were going to see Varla that night or the next night,
And did you ever tell them?
It depended. Back then, I was really private about it. I didn't want anybody to know, so I would definitely not tell people. And just listen to what they had to say. But and it never was a disaster.
Did anyone figure it out? Well,
I did have someone say one time who was looking at my abs because back then I used to wear bare midriffs on drag. He goes, "You have abs just like Varla Jean Merman." wait a minute.
That's funny. All right. So you were born in Arkansas.
Actually, Houston.
Okay, fuck Mark Cortali
but
for telling me you were born in Arkansas.
But my
and
family
then,
is from Arkansas, so my dad was there. My dad was in the Army and it became an FBI agent, but we were in Houston.
Yes.
And we were only there for like a month, so
okay.
I'm not really
and
from
then
Houston.
You grew up in Nacogdoches, New Orleans?
Natchitoches is Natchitoches, Louisiana is where I went to school, but I grew up all over Louisiana.
Okay.
I went to a boarding
hate
school.
him. Natchitoches. I know I have that. He's such a...
He doesn't even know.
I know. And are you the youngest of three?
No, I'm the middle.
He told me you were the youngest.
Yeah, I have an older brother who's very, very religious, and we haven't talked since I was 14.
Wow.
You know, I mean, we've seen each other every now and then.
And what's that like?
You know, I don't really care. I don't need his approval.
Right.
But it took a long time to get to that point.
Right, of course.
Yeah, because now I just don't even worry about it, which is terrible because I could see a stranger on the street and not even know it's my brother. I don't really know what he looks like anymore, you know? And then he got this big beard and looked like Duck Dynasty. And, you know, so, but, you know, he may be a great person and just very religious. My younger brother is one of the most wonderful people on the planet.
Oh, see, you're so lucky.
Yes.
You only need one.
And but my younger brother has 2 kids, and they're like the dream kids.
Right.
I mean, he's such a great father. He's an artist as well.
That's amazing.
You know, and he's just the greatest guy ever, and never was weird about it because he's the younger generation.
Right.
See, I think my generation and the one right above us, you know, we were weird, and so now you have this younger generation.
Well, because it was so like, you know, like I try to explain this to the young gays, like, you know, it was like, oh my God, if I ever tell anyone this, my life is over.
Right.
You know, you really thought, oh my God, like this is the worst. And being in the closet, like constantly having that fucking lump in your throat, like feeling like a fraud.
Constantly. And I went to a boarding school, so I was able to kind of come out early. I went to the state-funded school in Louisiana where you tested it to get in, and you'd go to a college and take college classes. And I knew I had to get out of my house because my mother was really religious.
Right. And,
you know, just really confused by me, and I was really fat, and I embarrassed her. And
fuck that. So wait, so you grew up in Malala. Your father was an FBI agent,
yes.
Did you know he was an FBI agent?
Yeah. We knew, but we weren't allowed to tell anybody. You know, we could just say he worked for the government, and we all had. You know, I remember too. I mean, it's funny because my big memory about my dad, because he died when I was 18. But I remember him taking his gun out and putting it on top of the refrigerator. Now, none of us could reach it or anything, but we were taught to go. We were really taught how dangerous guns were and how, you know, don't go anywhere near it. I remember being so scared of that gun. And so
that would be good parenting, I think.
I just think it's so good. I just, anyway, but that's kind of, it's odd that I have that memory of my father having a gun on him all the time, because he did. He always had a gun on him.
Were you nervous, like when he went to work?
It made me nervous, the gun. I mean, I just, not him going to work. I didn't understand that was nerve, you know, but he had leukemia and died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was 18.
18 sucks.
Yeah, so it was just weird. And my, you know, my mother, you know, oddly, my mother has never asked me what I've done for a living.
Okay, you're fucking lying.
No, I'm not. My mother has never said, "What do you do for a living?"
Do you speak to her often?
Yeah, not often, but a few times a year. But we, you know, we're very
not
friendly
Jewish.
now.
Right.
I did finally tell her. I told her I got married, you know, which was pretty shocking for her. Although,
plus she and of course she didn't say, I didn't get an invitation.
No. You know, it's funny because my mother, even if she knows I'm in theater, she's never asked to come see something.
That is horrible.
Well, it's just, I think, her generation. I think she's scared of what it is. I don't know, or maybe
she's scared of what other. Maybe she's scared of it within herself.
I think that's what it is. And even I was on Broadway.
Do you think she's a dyke? I know you were in Chicago.
Yeah, but in drag. So you know, who knows?
Who fucking cares?
I know.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. But
so all right. So you have an older brother. Did you have your own room growing up?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good because you got to have your own little universe.
Yeah.
And then you went to like grammar school. You just went away to high school, right?
Right. We lived in Colorado for a brief period, and then we moved back to Louisiana, and it was, tough. I mean, because in Colorado, the kids were kids, and in South Louisiana, they were men, like in fourth grade. It was a bizarre jolt. And but I was really good in band, and I played musical instruments. But
same.
I knew I had to get out of the house, so I tested and got in at school, and that's when my sort of life began. I mean, because I was.
So you were a freshman.
Yes, and I was in high school, so it was a sophomore.
Okay,
and I went there for chemistry. But some woman heard me talking, and I tested in there for chemistry. But a woman heard me talking in the hall, and she was a choir teacher, and she was like, "You have a high voice, you're a tenor," and I'd never sung before. And so I said, "I'll do whatever." And so that's how I got into choir.
So were you teased before? Like, how was school?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Because. Yeah.
Never to the point really being about being gay. I was just so awkward and weird. And I had this terrible problem that my nose would just bleed uncontrollably.
Why?
Constantly. I don't know. But I had to have my blood vessels cauterized at some point. It was just some kind of thing. And I would just remember I'd be so embarrassed. I'd be so embarrassed when I'd be on the playground with a jacket on because I was fat, and we're in South Louisiana. It was like 100 degrees, and I would just be bleeding into my jacket.
Oh,
because
that's
I was
awful!
So I was so
that
embarrassed.
That is so terrible.
Just sitting on the playground with bleeding into my jacket.
Was your older brother the religious freak? Was he popular?
Yeah, he was pretty popular.
Was he like football?
He was football and everything. He was a little guy, but he, he definitely, I think, was embarrassed of me too. I mean, just, I was kind of a weirdo in high school.
But were you comfortable within your own skin? Like when you got to your room, say, were you like, okay, I can be who I, or did you feel like, oh my God, this is never going to end.
This is never going to end. I also was very fat. Right. And so I just.
Like how fat? Like who? Name a person. Chris Christie fat?
Yeah. At one point, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Even when I moved to New York City, I weighed, about 300 pounds.
No way.
Yeah. And when I was 29, with the first season I came to Provincetown, I had lost all that weight, but the videos in my show were of me fat. So people would say after the show, "Who's the fat lady in the video?"
Wow.
But yeah, I lost the weight.
And you think, did your father ever say anything to you about your weight?
Oh, yeah. It was a big deal. Like they told me if I lost 20 pounds, they would buy me a ColecoVision. So I remember just running up and down the street like an Atari, running up and down the street, begging to lose it. But I couldn't lose it. I just couldn't lose the weight. I just, I had an eating problem. I just, I'm sure it was because I had all this internal hatred and feelings.
Of course.
Yeah,
shame, guilt.
Constantly.
Did they take you to church every day, every week?
Yes, every week. But I would even break into people's homes in the neighborhood and steal cookies.
What?
And steal cookies.
No, this is the fucking best story ever. Wait,
I would go into other people's homes in the neighborhood, like where my friends were, and knock on the door, and I knew they weren't home, and I'd go in and take cookies out of their
fucking way.
Yes. And
in
their
crazy.
Freezer. Well, because my mother was so intent on me being on diets, she would have a log of how many little Debbie cakes there were, and she'd write them down. And then we even had a chain around our freezer with a padlock on it.
No fucking
yes. And everybody knew the combination but me.
No fucking way.
But
this is mental torture.
But my mother was doing terrariums at the time, in the bottles with the...
Yes.
So she'd have 2 forks on a dowel rod to put the plants in. So I could open the freezer door about an inch, and I'd use the terrarium tools to shimmy out a Salisbury steak TV dinner, and then I'd eat it frozen.
You're fucking kidding me.
No, I just eat it frozen.
That's torture.
And then my brothers,
would you ever do that to a kid?
No, but she did it wrong. And she would take me to these meetings called TOPS, Take Off Pounds Sensibly, which is kind of like a Weight Watchers thing.
I went to Weight Watchers too.
But this is bizarre because you'd come in and you'd weigh, and if you lost weight, they'd ring a bell. If you didn't, they'd boo you and honk a horn.
You're fucking kidding me.
No. And I even remember.
Are they still around?
I don't know if they're still around. And we would sing parodies of songs like, and then it was a booklet, "Please, obesity, let me go." Yeah.
You're fucking kidding me.
No, not. And even I remember the pledge. I'm an intelligent person. I will control my emotions and not let my emotions control me. Every time I am tempted to use food to satisfy my desires or build up my injured ego, I will remember, even though I overeat in private, my excess poundage is there for all the world to see. What a fool I've been.
That is sick. That is fucking sick.
And I remember it. I remember that, you know.
You can never forget that.
No.
My mother sent me to a hypnotist to lose weight. And I don't even think I was that fat.
Yeah.
Like I was 6 feet at 13, but I was overweight. And my family they were skinny, but I was overweight. And I knew I was a les. I was taller than everyone. My parents were like really old. They were much older than And my mother took me to a hypnotist, and he would hypnotize me. And then I had to, before I ate anything, I remember the index card. I would have to say 10 times before I ate anything, I will eat properly and sparingly at every meal. I will eat properly and sparingly at every meal. And you just don't
Isn't that wild?
And it's like you want to scream out, I'm gay, I don't fit in, I don't want to be in a fucking business. I want to,
oddly, also when we would have these weigh-ins, I was so terrified of these housewives.
Of course.
I was the only little boy there. And I would like not drink water for 3 days beforehand, starving myself just to weigh less. But it was funny because I actually lost the weight. People, it wasn't until I actually quit my job and started doing Varla full time that the weight came off. Now, I worked really hard.
Yourself.
Yes, and I was happy. And I was doing something I loved, and it just came off. I mean, and then I got into sports later and did all of that. But even as a child, I think I would have been good at sports, but I was just so afraid, knowing I was different that.
And were you, at what age did you get fat? Did you start having a weight problem?
Oh, like 5, 6.
Oh, okay.
Early. Yeah.
And your brother's completely normal weights?
Yeah, completely normal. Now they're heavy.
So hard being a gay. I know. Now they probably look old and fat. Okay.
But you want to know a funny story?
Yeah.
Because I used to live right over here where you live. And one night, we were out by Gale Force Varieties,
Right.
And so one night.
This is in Provincetown.
This hilarious story. I think, who was I dating at the time? Could have been Mark, but I was, somebody had made me, my friend in town had made some pot brownies, and I don't even like pot brownies, but I had one, and then we're so far out, there was nothing else to eat. And so I had another.
No.
And I had another, and I had another, and I got so stoned that I broke into my neighbor's house. Alan Gallant. Do you remember Alan Gallant?
Oh, yeah.
And took ice
How
cream.
is he?
I don't know. I took
Okay.
ice cream out of his freezer.
Alan Gallant, sorry.
Yeah. I took ice cream out of his freezer and ate it, but I was so stoned, but I needed something to eat. So then the next morning, I'm like, oh my God, how could I mean, I knew Alan, he was a friend,
Right.
but still, you're not supposed to go into somebody's house. It was
Right.
just like me as a kid. So then the next day, I was like, I got to replace this ice cream. So then I went to the Stop and Shop and I got some ice cream. I came back, I think it was A&P at the time. I came back and I was ready and I saw Alan leave the house. And so I break back into his home.
Right.
And his roommate comes in and sees me
Putting ice cream in the
into
freezer. And did you tell him why?
I just said I wanted to leave Alan a surprise.
Oh my God.
I never told him.
Did anyone ever catch you when you were a kid going into their...
Oh, yeah, because what happened too, I was so starved for food that I would go to the bathroom, and I would, because my mother would give my brother an oatmeal pie and a ho-ho, but I would get an apple. So I would go to the bathroom in elementary school, and I would take everybody's little Debbie cakes out of their lunches, and I would go to the bathroom and eat them all. And then the kids would come out to go to lunch, and they'd look in their lunches, and their
Debbie,
hostess,
yeah,
and they'd start crying.
And then did they...
Finally, I got caught one time by the social worker. Thank God.
Oh, please. The teacher would have...
Yeah. So the
And
social worker called me
was
like, this boy has a problem.
Jeffrey, I need... Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
And then they made me see a psychiatrist after that. And I remember it was so weird. The psychiatrist would take me to Denny's and he'd say, what do you want to drink? I'd say Coke. He goes, I'm going to have a suicide. And I'm like, what? And that's why I learned where you put a little bit of each Coke, each, Sprite, Coke into, but I can't figure this out for the life of me, why a therapist was trying to have me order a suicide. Like maybe to desensitize me to the word since I was so young, or I don't know.
That's mental.
It's weird.
I'm sorry that is mental.
Yeah.
When did you start, playing musical instruments and?
Let's see, I played the clarinet first, like 6th grade,
right.
And I was so good at the clarinet that they asked if I would play the oboe the next year.
I love the oboe.
Well, I was so great at the clarinet, and then
the oboe double reed.
It was so hard to play, and I remember just crying, and I'd get up in the middle of the night and just hit what note. And go back to bed crying because I couldn't figure it out, and it drove me out of my mind.
It's harder if you play the clarinet because you're a single reed and then it's a double reed.
Well, it was just the fingering was different. And I have this obsessive quality to me to this day. I have to try to figure it out. I have very little patience. I just want to figure it out, and which has helped me in a lot of ways too.
It's great in showbiz.
Yeah, so I was in band and all of that,
Same.
and then I got to use the car. But my mother was so controlling; she'd know exactly how many miles it took to get to the band. But I was so good; I could drive the Chevy Chevette. And at the same time, I could unscrew the entire dashboard, and I'd put like this wooden staple into the odometer so
it wouldn't move?
Wouldn't click. And then I'd go hang out with a couple guys that were gay that were in my high school. So, but it wouldn't move.
When did you realize?
But then all the numbers on the odometer were all chipped off.
Did she say anything?
No.
When did you realize? What age did you say? Because we talk about this a lot on the podcast. I knew something was different. I was like, something's different, and then you realize, oh, I'm a lesbian. Well, I'm gay. Whatever.
Oh,
when
I knew really young.
Yeah, I knew 3 or 4.
Yes, like 5. I remember watching the Carol Burnett show, and like Lyle Wagner would come on, and he'd come on with just the underwear and like the boxer shorts and the dark socks, and it would drive me out of my mind.
No way.
Yeah.
Lyle Wagner? I had, I Dream of Jeannie. What was her?
Barbara Eden.
Yeah, Barbara Eden. I was like, oh my God.
Oh God. See, I loved her too.
Yeah. So...
but I knew early. I mean, I just knew. I mean, anything locker rooms drove me out of my mind. My dad would play basketball. Yeah.
Your dad played basketball?
Played basketball with a bunch of guys, cops. And so it was just
my God, that must have been so hot.
I would ask, please, can I go? They're like, you don't even like sports.
But I like cocks. So you had... When do you think they suspected? I heard from someone that you had a pet rabbit.
Oh, yes.
And you named the rabbit Natasha?
Yeah, my brother named his Hershey. My other brother named his like Bill. And then mine was Natasha.
How old were you?
Like 3rd grade.
Wow, 8.
Yeah. And so they knew right away. I mean, they just knew. My mother knew. It just drove her crazy. But we would go to church all the time. And so I would kind of, I think that's what people do when they're... You kind of throw yourself into religion, and so I would memorize.
Well, because it's a way of not having to think about it.
Yes,
and it's like, wait, it's really stops all sort of creative thought. It's like, wait, this happened. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to think about this? And it's like, well, the Bible says this, so that's what I'm going to think instead of what you really do fucking think.
Yes,
it's annoying. So you go to the Louisiana School for the Gifted.
Yes, Science and Arts.
And were you smarter than your siblings?
I guess so.
Okay. And so you get in and you're really good at math and science.
Yes, but I start hanging out with the actors and I just started to want to do that in the singing. So I just, I did end up getting a full vocal scholarship to LSU, which is, in Louisiana State. And, but I just started getting involved with all the actors and I just liked those people.
Well, you finally found...
Yes, and
are you still in touch with any of them?
I am. Yeah. We did a reunion show, and I came as Varla and did. We did a whole section.
Are any of them still performing?
Oh yeah, they're all of them are teachers. I think they're all teachers.
Right. Yeah,
which I'm not doing.
I do teach one class. Okay, so you go to boarding school. You have a roommate.
I had a roommate, yes, and he was very gay and very talented, a singer and an art, and just much more talented than I was. He just knew more, because I just started. So
well, because you're living in this,
And his parents were very encouraging, and he was just really. His name was Damien Domeng, and he was just so talented.
Well, see what happens when you have a decent parent.
And,
So when did you first have your first homo experience?
I remember I snuck into a gay bar.
How old?
In my Chevy Chevette. I was probably 15. And I met a big muscular guy there. We fooled around in the car outside, but it was just such a disaster.
And that was the first time?
That was the first time.
But did you, in your body, feel like, oh my God, this is what I meant to...
Well, not so much that time, but then I had a girlfriend at the same time, and her brother
What was her name?
Eva Lloyd Jones, I think.
Oh God, the South is so
they
funny.
they were Christian scientists.
So they never went to the doctor.
Yes, never went to the doctor. She wasn't allowed to take Advil or anything. But she had this hot brother who was adopted, and in my mind, they were moving out of town, and I was like, I have something to give you before you leave. I have something, just titillating myself. And one day I said it, and he grabbed me by the hand, looked me in the eyes, and goes, "Well, then come over and give it to me this afternoon."
No way!
Yes.
And that was your first hot fucking...
Yes. And he's, this guy's straight. And now I hear.
Okay.
But anyway, but I had never done what I was giving him.
Right.
And so I kept thinking he was finished. And he was like, "No, that's just your slobber."
Oh my God. But
it was titillating. I think about that now because he was a beautiful, he was just, an athlete and all that. I was this big dumpy kid. But it was so funny that he was so forward and younger than me and knew exactly what I was talking about.
Do you think... that makes me sad that he's obviously gay because you don't do
or it could just be a kid once, is young and just, is just like Randy. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Who knows?
Okay. What kid is like... look, I have kids.
Yeah.
Not once have they, during that period of time, been like, I'm gonna, and they're straight. They're straight kids. Unfortunately. But if not once were they curious or bi-curious, anything like that.
Right.
There was no interest. So the fact that he picked up on
means something, yes.
Yes. And then they go live these, it's like that movie with, what's his name? With the peach, where he fucks the peach.
Oh, yeah.
Timothy Chalamet.
What was that movie? Yeah.
And he has that affair with and then he goes out and lives his, white, privileged, straight, knowing that he's gay.
Well, there's a lot of that. In fact, my friend moved to the suburbs because he could get a lot more, he likes straight men, and he could get a lot more straight men in the suburbs because guys in the city are gay. But he could get straight guys, in quotations, and that's why he totally bought a house in the suburbs.
And he's gay and out?
And he's gay and he's out, but he likes straight guys to fool around.
And he finds enough of them?
A lot, because in the city you don't find
What do you
those.
think the percentage is?
Oh, God, I don't know, but I've known many. In the South, it was kind of the last to let go. So there were a lot of married guys. I know several married guys who, one of my best friends, it didn't come out till he was 50 because he was married. Yeah.
What about Elizabeth Smart's father?
Oh, what? I don't know.
He just came out and he's leaving the Mormon church. Yes.
Oh, my God.
Elizabeth Smart's father, the one, she got kidnapped.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
Okay. So you get into LSU.
Yes.
Now, were there any Jews in LSU?
Oh, yes.
Were there any Jews in your boarding school?
Yeah, because there was New Orleans. There's rich New Orleans kids and
okay, we're not all rich.
No,
Varla.
I know. But New Orleans has a very kind of
yes. We go to cities.
Yes, and
they
there
need
are a lot of
doctors.
very well-to-do Jewish families, and a lot of there's a lot of Jewish people in New Orleans.
Yeah. I did a Jewish gig there for the Jewish Federation.
Oh, is that juice?
Huh?
Apple juice.
Oh, yeah, apple juice. Oh, my God, that is so old. Yeah, that's when I did
I know
college.
all your material. I could have done it.
But that's my old shit.
Yeah.
But I did do a college once, and and it was in the middle of nowhere. And I asked if there were any Jews there because I had all this material.
Yeah.
And it was the beginning. So I was like, I didn't have a lot of material.
Yeah.
So I said, are there any Jews here? And she said, Jews? Yeah. Well, we have apple Jews, grapefruit Jews. All right. So, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fucking bomb. Okay. So you leave LSU with a degree in voice and graphic.
Yes, in advertising and in voice, which sounds crazy, but I got a degree in both. And
Were you like a great student?
I was pretty good. I mean, I didn't have the I was a full-time voice major, and then I just did not have the dedication. It wasn't what I wanted to do.
That's, I hate to talk about myself, but I was a music major, and I did not want to sit in a practice room for 6 hours a day.
No, I didn't have the dedication. And also, there was a lot of stuff I feel like I didn't really need to learn. And I knew that I wasn't right for an operatic tenor. I just had a very light voice, and it wasn't going to work out. So I just, I got more into advertising, and then that's how I came to New York.
Did you like advertising? And
I did. I
design?
loved graphic design. But this is
Do you
right
do all
when
your
computers.
own posters and everything?
I used to. I don't anymore because
Okay.
People.
Yeah,
have
but you
gotten
must be
better.
the worst person to make a poster for.
Well, I actually work with somebody who's so great. This
Right.
guy Rex Bonamelli, who's unbelievable. I never have to say a word. I've never had
Is
to.
he really expensive? That would be
No,
yes.
not crazy.
Okay,
but
that's yes.
he does it for love. I mean, and he's actually my first costume in New York. They're partners, and let me tell you, he is so talented. And the
Your
guy who
posters are always perfect.
he's great.
All right, so you get a job in New York at Ogilvy and Mather.
Yes,
It's Mather, but
Yeah.
people say Mather if they're fucking assholes. And so you moved to New York.
I moved to New York and I went to a headhunter and I had this great book because I had worked in New Orleans at this great little agency. And at the time, the art directors didn't know how to use computers, but we were getting out of school and knew how to use them. So it was at that time that everything was switching over to computer. And I worked with this great art director, this woman, and she was unbelievable and beautiful, long blonde hair, just a sexy cosmopolitan
This is
woman.
in Louisiana?
In Louisiana. And so I would have to transfer her designs to the computer and, take liberties and because, as you draw something, it's not how it is when you put it on a computer. And got a great book, as I was a junior art director and went to New York City. And I went to a headhunter and they were like, oh, we can get you a job at Ogilvy and Mather right away. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's blowing smoke in my ass. There's no way. So then I went to another headhunter and she's like, we can get you a job at Ogilvy and Mather right away.
Really?
And I got the job. But then that first headhunter called me and found me. And I had never experienced, he was so mad at me.
I
thinking,
don't blame him.
Yeah, but I just didn't know. I didn't believe him.
Right.
That I could get a job. And
Did you tell him that?
Yeah.
And does he still
He
hate
didn't care.
you?
Yeah, I don't even know who it is. But I got a job there and I worked there for years. And in fact, I worked there first and then I went to Foot Cone and Belding and I worked next to Jim Colucci. You know who that is?
Yes, I love Jim Colucci. He
Who's
runs
Frank DeCaro.
Birdland.
Yes. So
no,
Jim Colucci,
that's
Frank DeCaro.
Frank's-
Yeah. Close.
Jim Colucci, and he wrote that book about
The Golden
Girls. Yeah.
Which I'm in, which is so weird that we would be next to each other. But I was performing. I moved to New York City really to do drag because my friend who I went to Louisiana school with.
Wait. I just want to make sure this is correct.
Yeah.
Timo.
Yes. I had done these videos in New Orleans. And I didn't really do drag. I'd love John Waters, and people had introduced me to John Waters. And we would watch these John Waters films, and then we started making little videos that were kind of
And this was when the video cameras were huge.
giant, like
And-
putting a television on your like a
Yeah.
real so we would make these videos of me being chased by a plastic rat, just screaming, just for like 30 minutes, or drinking a gallon of milk.
And you're overweight in this.
Yes, very overweight, and are drinking a gallon of milk, laughing, and we just film. People would know we were filming, and I'd go to the mall just sitting there on a bench drinking a gallon of milk with it spilling all over me, and he would film from far away, and then people would laugh at all the reactions, and then we'd give those to the video bars because back then there weren't enough videos for them to play constantly. They'd play remember those graphics?
Oh yeah, and they had VCRs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they would play these videos. And that's how I got to be known in New Orleans. But I knew I wanted to do drag. I knew it. I would read Paper Magazine and Lip Sync and Lady Bunny. All these people were in there. I knew it. Charles Bush. I knew I wanted to do drag. But my friend from Louisiana
Charles
school
Bush, sorry.
moved to New York first. And he's like, oh my God, you have got to move here. I just went to this show last night where this drag queen did a monologue about going to Tower Records with Ava Martin singing the Liebestod, Wagner's Liebestod. Now, it sounds crazy, but that was Miss Coco Peru.
Yes.
And I couldn't believe it. So I was like, wait, in New Orleans, people are lip syncing to Melissa Manchester.
Right. Don't cry out loud. Or what's Diana Ross or Jennifer Holiday.
Ross.
Yeah.
So I couldn't believe it. So I moved to New York just because he told me that. Because I knew that the drag I wanted to do was not the lip syncing. I knew it wasn't the John Waters thing, which I had sort of started to do more shock value. But I was like, what is going on in New York?
Because it's like a real person.
Yeah, this is like, I couldn't believe it.
You're working at this graphic.
Right, so
and
like
do you have
24.
your own apartment?
I have my own apartment in the
Because you
quarter.
cannot live.
No. I live in my own apartment in the quarter.
And your father died when you were 18. How did your father die?
He had leukemia.
Oh, that's right. We already discussed that.
So,
Sorry.
Yeah, no. And so I
And you
lived in
couldn't
the
be with
quarter
your
of New
mother, so
Orleans.
yes.
By myself. I've supported myself since high school. So every dime I've made, I haven't been helped, and I'm proud
Good
of
for
that.
you. Okay.
But so I moved to New York City strictly to steam Miss Coco and to be around that kind of drag because I thought, I was an opera fan and I could have never gone in a New Orleans bar and done
opera.
So I could also sing at the time. I go to New York. I go to the Wonder Bar. Do you remember that bar?
Oh,
in the East
yes.
Village?
I love the Wonder Bar.
I go into the Wonder Bar one of my first nights there, and they're playing my videos from New Orleans.
And you had no idea.
No idea. Somebody had copied them somewhere and sent them to them. So I told the guy, that's me. And he was like, no, that's not. I was like, it's me. And he said, well, you should do a benefit. There's a big benefit at the Pyramid for the March on Washington. Was that 93?
That was 94?
Somewhere around there.
93 or 94. Yeah.
And so I did this benefit at the Pyramid Club, and so many people saw me. I got booked all over the city. And so then now I'm doing
And you're
advertising.
still working at Ogilvy and Mather.
Yes.
And do they know?
They did not know. Now slowly they started to find out.
Did you have to be in the closet at Ogilvy and Mather?
No, I didn't feel I needed to be. It was New York City.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I just think they assumed. And I would do drag at night and all day long I would work. And then I met Suzanne Barsht, who... No, she's...
that was a Jew
Switzerland.
Czech. Okay, go ahead.
And she's a big party promoter in New York City.
Okay.
Now she's kind of come back now. She was married to David Barton, the gym guy.
Oh, yeah.
But she wanted me to do all these parties, and she'd fly me to Paris because she'd do big dance parties, with Joey Arias and all these people.
Wait, so you're working at an advertising agency,
Yes.
and then like on the
weekends,
flying to Paris or and doing
for Saturday
a drag
night,
show,
coming back Sunday.
That's
all over the world.
Amazing.
Rome and London. But listen, what happened one time, she wanted me to do another gig and it was a Friday night and I couldn't do it. And I was like, I can't miss any more work. I'm going to get fired. And so her husband,
David,
came to me and said, look, I'll fly you on the Concorde. Don't tell Suzanne.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No.
And you flew on the Concorde?
Flew on the Concorde.
What was that like?
It was unbelievable. It's so high in the air. It was crazy. But
did
when
you
I got
feel
there,
weird?
Oh, no. And it was just so fast. I couldn't believe.
How long did it take you to get there?
It's only a few hours at the time, right? It was it was 4 hours instead of 8 or I can't remember.
God.
But I tell one queen that I flew on the Concorde. And they told Suzanne, and she was furious with me because she thought that I had somehow railroaded. But he loved her so much, and he knew that she needed me for that event. So he
was helping her out.
He was helping her out, but I got in trouble for it.
What is that with the queens being such gossipy?
I don't know.
What is that?
Just, it's always been. It's so funny. There's something that happened to me in town. Someone didn't come to my show, and someone very famous in town, or not in town, very famous. And so they said they wanted to come to my show. And so I, put a reserved seat while I'm coming down the aisle. I see they're not sitting there. So they just didn't show up. And I didn't tell anybody because you don't want to act like it bothers you, but it does bother you if you walk down.
Oh, of course.
And I'm having this internal dialogue with myself, thinking, why aren't they here? And so I mentioned it to one person and then the person called me back the famous person who didn't come. I'm not going to say, but it's just so funny. You know, I didn't tell anybody one person, so I know. But it actually was very sweet because they were defending me. They're like, "How can you do that to Varla Jean Merman?"
Now, is the famous person Jewish?
No.
I just want to ring the bell. So, the creation of Varla. Now, I did learn that you loved Wonder Woman.
Oh my God, I was obsessed.
And you loved Doris Day. And
Loved Doris Day.
And then you saw her in an ad where she, Doris Day, perfect Doris Day, was talking about if you hurt an animal, you're a fucking asshole.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I just couldn't believe it because Doris Day was such this sweet lady. And then she has a thing. It said, what was it? Hurt animals and I'll kill you. I'll fucking kill you. What was it? I can't remember now what it is.
But it was so anti her TV personality.
And then I loved her. And then I just loved, that she's an animal rights activist. Right. But I was a huge fan of Carol Burnett. See, when I wanted to do drag,
Carol Burnett
had nothing to do with what my mother feared, that I sexually wanted to dress as a woman. I have absolutely zero sexual connection with drag. I would watch like Mrs. Hooligan's with the big butt and the Bob Mackie costumes.
Yes.
And I wanted to wear those and act and have fun. It had nothing to do with sexuality.
What is it about dressing as a woman, being a man? Because I find it so odd that it's so, people find it so beautiful and entertaining when a man dresses as a woman.
Right.
But when there's a drag king, it's a woman dressing as a guy. It's
a much harder sell.
Yeah. And what do you think that is?
It's so much easier to gild the lily than to strip it away. So to be a man, even though there are men that are very, like Liberace or even Elvis that are more put upon, I mean, it's so much easier to dress up like a woman. It's just,
I think that women are less threatening. I think
because you're right too.
I did Shakespeare in the Park, and it was an all-female Taming of the Shrew, and I played what's his name? Okay, and my character was based on. It was 2016. Was based on Trump,
right?
And I was just the biggest misogynist, and it was. And all the women who all the women who are playing male parts in this show, we worked for months with a movement teacher, and the director her intent was, you're not playing a man, you are a man.
Right.
And we took, we took movement classes, we studied, all this stuff so that we really were, and we got amazing reviews, but some of the male reviewers were like, they were so, I don't know what to say. They were defensive. Yeah. They were, they felt attacked. Like they couldn't look at themselves.
Right.
But women, I have loved drag. I mean, I love gay men. I don't know I'm like a leslie who loves gay men, but it's amazing how the characters in drag, the great drag queens, like Charles, like Miss Coco, their drag persona is a real person.
Right. Well, that's what, even when I started, I thought when I came to Provincetown, I would never be seen out of drag. No one knew who I was. You know how I first marketed myself? I wanted people to believe that Varla was a real person, where you could see her going to the grocery store like that. So you convince somebody that you see them at home dressed like that.
Right.
So it was never too clowny, enough where you could see a woman doing that. And I would just go to fine restaurants when I first got here as Varla, and sit down. Like I remember Chester's and the other places.
Oh, remember
And I would just sit there by myself and act like I was some lady going to dinner. And it really worked. People really were convinced that I was a character, not a drag queen. I mean, it just really worked to make people believe that I lived that way.
Do you think you got from doing that, from putting Varla in the real world, do you think you got any insight about what it's like to be female in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't say I completely understand, obviously, in many,
right.
Just even, a woman's right to choose. It's a woman's right to choose. I have I have an opinion, but
It's not.
it's not my business. I mean, but there's so many things about women, and women are allowed to be so many more things than men are allowed to be,
but men make a lot
of
more
course,
money. And
of course. But I'm saying as a character.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many dimensions. Yes.
So many dimensions, I mean, for me to be such a giant man and just to try to convince myself in my head that I'm like the size of Ariana Grande holding my hands and there's just hand placement for a woman. Men can't do anything with their hands except point, and women can do. I mean, there's just so many.
You're
things.
talking about like I'm a man.
Yes.
Like I am. I often, I got so teased, and I remember seeing a video of myself in the marching band, and I was like, no wonder they tease me.
Oh no.
And I in high school, 6'3". I was.
Right.
I'm the size of I'm the size
Right.
of like a football player, like a male
We're
athlete.
Same size.
All right. And I get treated differently because of my size.
Right, yes.
But I still, I think I have a semi-different experience because of my size.
Oh, totally. You have to have a totally different. I mean, but I was developing a character that I could create in any way I wanted, and
how did you, how did you know that you wanted to be this? I mean, it's just so fascinating because, an actor plays different roles. A comedian is themselves. You're a comedian in a way, your show is, all of your shows are so well thought out and brilliant. It's beyond, let's watch this drag queen act like so-and-so and sing a song. It is a work of art, each one of your shows. And so you started with Varla. How, first of all,
at the time, all
Varla
drag
was born, and
yes.
and she has become, in a way, I mean, as with a comedian, your life changes, your life experiences change, your material changes.
Yes.
And Varla, I mean, this last show really hit me so hard. I want to talk about that at the end. But it's like she still believes she's a young beauty, right?
Which is a big thing in Los Angeles. Like women, I just find that any showbiz person has some of these traits. But when I first started with the character, I was just doing shock value drag, kind of like Divine, but I knew it wasn't right for me. I just knew. I would even watch videos of me think that's not right. Why I'm not a shock value person. I'm not.
It's like doing hacky jokes.
Yeah, it didn't work. And then something clicked where I was doing these plays with Kevin Maloney in New York City, and he would do these things called Fractured Classics, and we would take with the Tweed Theater Company, which is just such a great theater company. When I moved to New York, he's the first person that cast me. He cast me as Honey in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which the whole thing, I'm telling you, him casting me as that really shaped who I was, because Nick and Honey, it was played by Sandy Dennis, right, in the movie. And she was just very mousy, and that's the whole thing. They talk about how mousy she is and how, and I also I weighed 300 pounds at the time. And then they cast Shelley Mars as Nick, who, was
sorry.
And it really shaped me as an actor because I had to get the laughs by being so subtle and demure and mousy. And so it really...
And not in your face.
Yes, not in your face. And I got more laughs doing that than I ever got on stage. Saying fuck you, and, making out with a cow tongue, which I did for a while. No, I literally would go to a bar with a cow tongue in my handbag. And they were so expensive. I'd get it Western beef and I'd put it back in the freezer and then let it thaw the next time I need to use it. But I would get so much more laughs that way. Like people responded to this big giant man being very demure and tiny.
Because there's nuance.
Yes.
And
but him casting me, that really, then I started to play that character, Honey, a little bit, became part of Varla. And Varla really took a while to develop as I first started. Like, Nora Burns
I love Nora Burns.
I love Nora Burns. I just saw her show the other day. David's best friend.
I love her.
She posted a video of me, and it's just like, who is this person? Because I had just moved to New York, but I had to figure out Varla. It took years to figure out that she was quiet, although, a good time girl, but it was more the subtlety of that. And then when Richard Day wrote Girls Will Be Girls, he wrote our characters very well into Girls Will Be Girls. And then I saw who my character was even more. I saw that he took who he thought I was and put it, and I'm like, oh my God, that is who I am. I had never thought about who is Varla. It's not like an actor's course.
Right.
You're just performing in drag and you slowly develop a character. But then it was so clear to me who I was.
But that's when everything sort of
clicked, late 90s.
Right.
So,
and Varla is the daughter of Ernest Borgnine.
Ethel
Merman. Varla Jean
because
Merman.
in Ethel Merman's autobiography, she says, my marriage to Ernest Borgnine, there's a big chapter, and you turn the page and it's blank. Which had to be great for the publisher to, say, okay, we're going to do this.
Yes.
We'll waste a page. And it's supposed to be, Varla thinks that that's who she is. And she ended up, because, Ethel Merman didn't want any, remembrance of her marriage, that she just shipped the child off to an orphanage in Louisiana. So
Such
that's
a
who
great
Varla,
backstory.
who thought she was. Now nobody knows who any of those people are, so I never even talk about it.
So sad. It is so fucking
But for a while,
sad.
people found that so funny.
It's hilarious
at the time. So
I think you could still do it.
Yeah, I've mentioned it every.
You
now and
could
then,
do
but-
it at our show in Boston because
Yes.
you'll have all the old Jews there.
right.
So, right. That's right. Thank you. See? So you did Girls Will Be Girls.
Yes, which was a big one. And we were in this film, and let me tell you, Jack Plotnick, Coco Peru, just unbelievable actors. And I had never done real television, real movies. And then you're like, oh my God, like they're doing it exactly the same way every time. It's a total different style. Like I had to learn with these two great pros and learn I would just watch Jack Plotnick and I'd see, oh my God, he's picking up the glass every time. And I asked him, he goes, you need to do this for the editor. I was like, what? I had no idea.
Yeah, it's so that's why I love live theater. Because
me
it's in the
too.
moment.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about any of that. But I love Jack, such a great comic actor. And I learned so much from him. And I knew him from Seth. And so
now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Notice how Varla gets into big show business and the bell starts ringing. Yeah.
And so I just learned so much with them on that movie. And it was a great experience.
Then you did Varla Jean.
But people we filmed that movie. And it was at, Sundance, and I think Anna Wintour walked out at the abortion scene.
No way.
Yeah, I think we remember.
Was she wearing glasses? Sunglasses?
Yes, she was, I think. And we went to Sundance, and nobody cared about us, and we felt like we were in drag, and no one could care less about drag in 2003.
Oh, yeah.
No one wanted to be anywhere around. We were freaks. Okay, now look at drag. It is just so crazy.
It's beyond.
We wouldn't get let into parties. I remember me and Miss Coco, we would try to go to every party. And they had us in drag every second to try to get, attention to the movie. And we would have to beg to get invited into parties. I mean, it was just so... It's such a different time.
I know.
And so we would do whatever it took, though. And then I remember people coming into my show saying, we saw your movie. We were the only one in the audience.
Oh, that's so nice, isn't that?
And then about a year later, I remember I was in Provincetown. I was having Joe's Coffee, the old Joe's Coffee. And
I love that
someone
Joe's Coffee.
drove up in a car and said, take these for the ride, you huge cow, and threw a handful of candy at me. And I'm like, how rude. But then I realized, oh my God, that's from Girls Will Be Girls.
Oh.
And then after that, it became a cult film and people were watching it, like having parties and watching it constantly. And it really, formed like drag queens like Jinx Monsoon and Ben de la Creme. They started to, that was one of the movies they watched as kids.
Right.
They would watch it as kids from Blockbuster.
Right.
And how it formed their drag. So it's really interesting. It was a big movie. I'm so fortunate to have been in
I
it.
know. That
For drag, especially someone in drag, it really formed.
Do you ever meet any drag queens today, newer drag queens who have never seen that film?
No, I think they've all seen it.
Okay.
Don't forget to tune in next week to Just Kill Me Now.
It's Just Kill Me.
Oh. Don't forget to turn for part 2 on Just Kill Me.
No, it's not. It's
Just Kill Me.
No.
Judy Gold's Just Kill Me.
Kill me now.
Just kill me now.